So you're stuck at home and your hair is getting a bit too long, but you're not seeing a barber anytime soon. Well, today I'm going to teach you how to give yourself an undercut from the comfort of your own home, step by step. Who says you can't get a fresh fade under lockdown? What you're going to need to cut your own hair is a pair of hair clippers, the attachments that come with it, a pair of scissors, a comb, a small brush, this is optional, a handheld mirror, and hair clips. This is also optional. You can check out my specific equipment in the description below. Step 1 is to wet your hair fully. This is going to help make your hair much easier to cut. And by the way, if you have any facial hair, I suggest you shave it to the final state that you want it to be in so you can visualize your final look a little bit easier when you're giving yourself your haircut. Step 2 is to observe your hairstyle. See what you've got to work with, what foundation you have, especially if you have any parts in your hair. You want to make sure that you're aware of that so you don't cut the wrong hair at the wrong length. What you're doing here is giving yourself an undercut, but working with what you've got. We're not giving ourselves a 100% complete makeover here. Step 3, it's time to fade your sides. If you have any hair clips, this is the perfect time to use them to separate that longer hair that you probably have at the top of your head with the shorter hair on the sides. Now, fading your sides is a really simple process. How you want to look at it is in terms of layers. Imagine that there are layers that create the side of your head from the bottom to the top of your forehead. And within each layer is a different length, a different clipper size that you're going to be cutting it at. You're going to start off with a lower clipper size and go all the way up to a little bit longer clipper size to create that gradual fade on the side of your head. I start off with 0.8 millimeters for that first layer, and I cut all the way up to the end of that imaginary layer. And what I'm going to make is a line on the side of my head. And I move on once I'm done to a little bit longer, but not necessarily too long, clipper size of 1.1 millimeters. And I go up to the second layer. And this is the process, right? You're going layer by layer, cutting it up until the end of each layer, essentially creating that gradual transition that creates that fade on the side of your head. Once you're done fading that part, it's time to move on to part 2 of your side, the upper side of your head. And what you want to do with that is you want to start off with a little bit longer clipper size. I start with 5 and I go upwards in a straight line. Imagine there was a ruler that would be lying on the side of your head. You're going to go upwards. You're not going to be having the clipper be pressed against your skin, because if you do that, your clipper is going to curve and it's not going to give that upper hair shape. Once we've trimmed a little bit of the fat with the longer clipper size, we're going to go to a little bit shorter one and really tighten up everything. And the exact same thing, we're going in an upwards direction and pulling out, right? Imagine there's that ruler, you're going upwards. To finish off the upper side, you're going to go to a longer clipper size. I go with 9.8 and I go downwards. I go inverted and really round off that corner of my head to really make that transition, right? Especially since I have a part, I want to make that transition smooth because people will be able to see that. And that's it. One side complete. Now we're moving on to the other side. And the other side is the exact same process, right? We go with those layers. Then for the upper side, you're going to go with that ruler and then that rounding off of the corners. I also want to take this time to let you guys know to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and hit the like button for that YouTube algorithm. That's going to really help me out and help a lot of guys out there who are in the same situation, trying to figure out their haircut in their homes. Now, step 4 is that we're done with the sides and it's time to fade the back. What I do is I clip all my top hair forwards so it doesn't interfere with anything in the back. Now, to see the back of your head, you're going to need your handheld mirror. And what you're going to do is you're going to reflect that handheld mirror to the bigger mirror that you've been using to cut the front of your head, right? And you're going to see the back of your head. And it's going to be tricky sometimes, but you're going to get the hang of it. Don't worry about that. Now, to actually cut the back of your head, it's the same process as the side of your heads, right? It's all about the layers. You're going to create that fade upwards. For the first layer, we're going to start with 3.8 millimeters and we're going to match it with the side of our head. Now, I'm going to start off with this back corner, this back side area, and use my ear as a guide to go upwards, right? And create that first layer. Really curve into that side to really make it transition together. Now, once that back side is done, we're gonna move on to the actual back, I would say. And I would go up and continue that layer, right? Create the same height that you've been cutting and continue it on, move it on to the other side. With the other side, it's the exact same process. We're gonna have that layer continue on and connect to the side of your head and use the ear as guidance. Once you're done with that, you're gonna see a layer from one ear to the back of your head to the other ear, and that's gonna be your first layer. And for the subsequent layers, it's gonna be the same thing. For the second layer, I'm gonna move my clipper up the back of my head, one layer height's worth. And I'm gonna follow the same process, right? Go around the ear and connect it to the side of my head, go to the other side, do the exact same thing. And for the back, go up one layer height's length and make that second layer. For the third layer, again, the same thing, same process. Now, the third layer is my last layer that I'm gonna create on the back of my head. And so for the final back cutting, I go all the way up and do that ruler trick that I was talking about earlier, where I cut straight upwards in a straight line and I move my clipper out backwards so I can create that shape and create that volume on the top back of my head. Once your back has been faded, it's time for step 5, rounding those back corners. You're gonna see kind of a bump show up on the back of your head, and that's where you're gonna get rid of it. It's similar to the side of your head. Remember where we had that kind of corner, that transition from the top to the side. You're gonna get rid of that by not using the handheld mirror, but facing the big mirror that you have and really looking at it in that way. Use the same clipper size that you used for your final layer and really go up. If it still sticks out, you can decrease the clipper size if necessary. Now, once you're done, you're gonna do the same thing as what you did for your side. You're gonna invert and go downwards with a larger clipper size to really round off that corner. And what you're gonna see at the end is a really rounded, natural looking corner. And with that, the back is pretty much done. But as you can see, there's still some cleaning up to do with the back of my head. So I'm gonna dedicate all of step 6 to cleaning up the back. The back is probably the trickiest part about giving yourself a haircut. So really take your time to cut it. Now, if that means giving yourself more layers to make that fade really smooth, do it. Especially with the top corner of the back of your head, you're gonna want to do the inverted cutting down trick to really round out that corner and make that transition really nice. And boom! We've got our left side faded. We've got our right side faded. We've got the back faded as well. It's time to go to the final section of our head, the top. Step 7, comb the top of your head towards your face, towards the front. If you have long hair like me, you're gonna wanna do that, and it's gonna help you set up your hair for step 8, which is cutting the top, of course. We're finally moving on to using scissors, which can be pretty scary, but don't worry about it. I believe in you. You've got this. What we're gonna do is grab the portion of our hair that grows from the middle of our head and move it aside because we'll be cutting the bangs, the hair that grows right above the forehead. And we're gonna cut it to the middle of the forehead. That's kind of where I cut it towards. Look at how I hold my scissors. It's this vertical or rather diagonal stance. It's not horizontal. It's not flat. And that's very important because in this method, you're gonna be able to cut your hair non-uniformly. It's gonna be kind of random and messy, and that's on purpose because it makes a natural cut. Once that front bangs is done, I'm just gonna lay the rest of my hair upwards and do the same thing, cut it to the middle of my forehead. Go little bit by little bit, take your time with your bangs because if you mess up with your bangs, there's no reversing, right? As with the entire haircut itself. So take your time, cut a little bit by little bit, and really make this look natural. If you're like me, you might have longer hair that's growing at the top of your head and falling down to the side. And for your undercut look, you can style this and cut this in many different ways, right? You can cut your hair a little bit higher and end it off at that corner of your head, or you can leave it laying down. I've done both styles and both look good, but what I'm doing this time is just leaving it a little bit longer, and this is actually a little bit safer too. I'm just gonna grab a little chunk and just start cutting off, and it's all about trial and error. Just cut a little bit, put it down, see where it lays, cut a little bit, do it again. And what's gonna happen is that eventually you're gonna get it to a position where it matches the length of your bangs, and it's gonna have this diagonal slant that connects with your bangs, and that's what's gonna make it look good. Finally, to reduce some thickness in your hair, I recommend you grab a chunk of your hair in the middle of your head and just start snipping away and do some trial and error and cut away. And you're essentially making it, a little bit more natural and make some more layers and texture. You don't have to be very particular because you're going for the natural look anyways. So once you've gotten that down, it's time for step 9, which is previewing your hair with water. The key to this hairstyle is that you're definitely going to be styling it with some product, and so using water can help you kind of visualize, have a preview of your hairstyle, and not only that, be able to see what you need to still improve on. Step 10 is the final cleanup. With your preview with water, you're going to be able to see things that you can fix up, such as fades or bumps. You got to get rid of all that stuff. This is the final chance for you to do that. Step 11 is to clean up your neckline. I would say this is optional and not necessary, but if you can do this, you will make your haircut even more fresh, and honestly, you would have mastered cutting your own hair. What we're doing here is getting rid of the baby hairs and really defining that edge on your neckline. The risky thing about this, the hard thing about it, is that you'll be using really small clipper sizes, such as 0.8 millimeters. And if you mess up, and again, this is on the back of your head, it's pretty hard to control, there's no going back, right? So you gotta be really, really careful and essentially create that line that goes and defines that edge on the back of your head. Now, even for me, I have difficulty cleaning up the neckline sometimes, so you gotta be really careful, okay? Another trick you can do is try to fade it a little bit, right? Set your clipper size to a higher one and try to fade it in. What will happen is that you're gonna have a really defined line at the back of your head, and it's gonna look fresh. Now, all you need to do is take a shower, put some product in your hair, and boom, before a messy haircut into now a fresh, faded, undercut, all cut by yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back. You deserve it. Now, there's one more tip that you're gonna need to know to be able to successfully cut your own hair, and that is to believe in yourself. Be confident that you can cut your own hair. I'm serious, this literally changed the game. I've been cutting my hair for 10 years now, okay? 10 years, but I could say that 8 of those years were just complete failures. I remember going to school and my friends would be like, Jensen, what happened to your hair? Why is there a chunk, like a hole in your head? Or like, why did you go bald? I had a nickname Monk for my grade 10 year because, suddenly all my hair disappeared because I messed up. I think it was around 2 years ago when everything changed. I tried to cut my hair one more time, but this time was a bit different because this time I said to myself, you can do this. Just cut your hair. And if you mess up, you mess up. And so what I did was I grabbed a chunk of my hair and I got the scissors and I just started. Before that, I was like shaking all the time. I was like super particular with my hairstyle. What I realized was, you know what? You just gotta take the risk, you gotta take the jump. When you have that confidence, you're just gonna be able to cut your own hair so successfully, and what's gonna happen is that you're gonna go to school or to work or whatever, and no one's gonna say anything. People might say, oh, nice haircut, but no one's gonna say anything. And that's the best compliment, because that means that no one knows that you cut your own hair, okay? So be confident, believe in yourself. That is the final thing you're gonna need to be able to cut your hair successfully. Now, if you're a subscriber of mine or you watch my videos, you'll know that this video is a little bit different from what I usually do, but I feel like this skill, at this time, at this hectic crisis that we're in, it could be useful to a lot of guys out there. So hopefully this video, if you enjoyed it, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Peace out.